This is a diagram. Again, it's my own. There's nothing proven on this except what's happened in my life. My life is just the way it is. There are three things, if we're going to differentiate an assignment, to where I can validate students on their own level. All right. First of all, I'm working with that whole creative thing. Is it productive? Is it this? Is it this? There are three things that I have to consider. Content objective. I cannot do anything about that. The state of Texas, for me, mandates that. Can't do anything about it. As a matter of fact, even my local people say, and you will even teach it on Wednesday. Can't change that, so that one's a given. My question to you as a teacher is, what thinking skill are you incorporating into this? Now, I would say that if every teacher in here had their own pet thinking skill, maybe you do critical thinking, maybe you do creative productive thinking, maybe you do Socratic questioning. Imagine what a student's life would be like if every teacher knew what their thinking skill best was. I'm going to tell you that I started asking teachers, so what is your thinking skill? What is your thinking skill strategy that you use? And they go, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, you know, is it, and I start saying, is it upper level blooms? Is it critical thinking? Is it creative productive? And they go, I don't know what you're talking about. Here's what that tells me. It tells me that teachers are not thinking about thinking. They're thinking about content. They know their content, but they're not giving any thought to thinking. So what I want is I want an assignment that's going to mesh thinking with content. Oh, now here's the biggie. Intrinsic motivation. I've got to find a motivator. What do I use as a motivator? Well, first of all, if it's an open-ended assignment, it's going to have some motivation. If it's got that whole model of using your imaginative thought and causing something to come into existence, that appeals. That's appealing. There's some little things that you do in the classroom. Sometimes it's motivating, and it depends on the age of your kids. For example, I can read a short story in my classroom. I can come in the next day with a small bag of potato chips. I can open the bag of potato chips, and I can ask questions. So I ask the first question. Someone raises her hand. She answers it. Good job. Ask another question. She raises her hand. She answers it quickly, and I hand her a potato chip. Everybody goes, you gave her a potato chip. Why didn't you give her a potato chip? Well, she got that question right. I didn't get a potato chip. I know, she did, though. And I go through the class, and I ask questions, and I hand out potato chips. Randomly hand them out. Everybody doesn't get one that asks the question correctly. You're going, that doesn't sound motivating. Really? Why do people go to Las Vegas? It doesn't sound motivating that you would put your money in there and lose. It's for it because it randomly pays off from time to time. And so what do kids do when you open a bag of potato chips after a few times? Everybody's hands up, they're going, okay, somewhere in this there is and there's a chance. And then they start speculating. There is probably some sort of pattern to this. And so they keep track of how many questions have been asked. They keep track of how many were answered correctly. They keep a track of if it was a boy or a girl. And typically what I have done is I have written down my reasoning on a piece of paper and laid it on my desk. Because somebody will say, okay, what was it this time? And I pick it up and say, well, it was every third girl that answered a question correctly. That's what it was. Sometimes it's incorrect answers. I will say, I'm sorry, that was wrong. Here, have a potato chip. They're like, really? Really? How often do you reward students for failure? She tried. She should get something. But instead, she doesn't get a potato chip. And she's just going to stop raising her hand. Okay, well, let me give it a shot. I've been wrong every time, but here we go. And maybe I'll get a potato chip this time, too. It's an extrinsic motivator, but it also says something about me as the teacher to her. She says, you know what? He cares enough about validating me for answering a question that he may give me a potato chip. Now, I will tell you the real motivator is that with girls, they save the potato chips and don't eat them. They put them on their desks at middle school and they flick them around. They kind of put them on a tissue and they kind of touch them every so often. Because it drives the boy next to him crazy. Because he's already eaten his potato chip. Look at that. And she just kind of taps it every once. I think I want to save it for later. And so she just drives him wild with potato chip. Because he wants the potato chip. I think there's some other issues underlying there that we're not going to talk about. But it's all part of the age group. But it's about motivation. So let me real quickly give you an assignment from beginning to end that fits that, and I'll even show you an example. All right. So let's say that my content, I'm going to teach how to use a thesaurus, I'm going to teach parts of speech, and I'm going to teach alliteration, and I'm going to teach onomatopoeias. Ooh, that's a big chunk to bite off with once. So I bust out a book called the Berenstain Bee Book. Unfortunately, I left it at home, didn't bring it with me, but it is a kindergarten book. It has one sentence in it, and it says, big brown bear, blue bull, big brown bear, blue bull, biking back, and it goes through the whole thing, whole book, and it's illustrated. It's alliterative. And so I bust out the book, and if you're one of my 6th graders, you roll your eyes and you go, this is a baby book. If you're one of my 8th graders who's been with me 3 years, they go, oh no, this is going to be hard. I don't know how to do this is going to be hard. So what I've done is a week ahead of time, I set a sewing machine up in my classroom, predominantly right there. So every day the kids come in and they go, it's a sewing machine. Yeah. That's your sewing machine? Yeah. You know how to use that sewing machine? Yeah. Can I use that sewing machine? Yeah, and I'll break your fingers. Oh. Am I going to get to use that sewing machine? If you live long enough, you might. So that goes on for a week. And they're like, wonder what we're going to use the sewing machine for. The sewing machine's in here. Now, I'm not an idiot. I didn't put the electricity to it because some kid's going to sit down and step on it. So it's just sitting there for a week. Now, we bust out the Berenstain Bee Book. We read it. I then have a sheet with every one of the words on it out of the sentence. And I say, now your assignment is to identify every part of speech for every one of those. Now, there are phrases in there like banana boxes. If you look the word up, banana, up in the dictionary, it's going to say that it's a noun. But it's an adjective because it's all about context. Ooh, we're getting into some high-level stuff here. We're talking about analysis. You're going to have to look at things in context. You're going to have to analyze the words, decide what part of speech they're. So they list them. Now, the next phase is I tell them that we are going to create their own version of the bee book. And in creating that, everybody is going to get to draw a consonant out of my hat. Everybody's going to draw a consonant out of the hat because everybody's going to get a different consonant. You remember how I don't like all those assignments that all look exactly alike? Well, this is to keep that from happening. And what they don't know is when they're drawing, Heather is going to get the hardest letter in the alphabet to research and use a thesaurus for because she can do it. And she's going to get the easiest letter that's in the hat, and I'm somehow going to manipulate that to happen, but it looks like random draw. And so we all draw a letter. Now then, we're going to spend our time in the classroom, and what we're going to do is, if you could imagine taking paper, stacking it up like this, old school fashion, and folding it in half, this is going to be the book. Now, there were some criteria you had to come up with, and if it was an adjective, a color adjective in the book, it's going to be a color adjective with your letter. If it's a size adjective in the book, it's going to be a size adjective with your letter, and so forth. Well, I hand out these papers, and they're all numbered, 1 through 35, or how big this book is. They're all loose pages. And I tell the kids, here's the way this is going to work. We're going to work on this in class, and the very first person that finishes, the one who finishes first, the whole book, is going to get to stitch through your book and stitch the pages together. And I will show you how to thread the bobbin. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but middle schoolers love watching a bobbin being threaded on the sewing machine. Now, I will tell you that you can do nearly every one of my students, all my classrooms, with one bobbin. But they don't know that. So they're hoping maybe they'll get to fill the bobbin. So I teach them how to stitch down. I show the first one how to stitch down the middle, turning it, hand turning it. And I show them with electricity how to fill the bobbin. And I say, if the bobbin ever needs filling, you get to fill it, and I'll hook up the electricity, and we'll deal with it. All right. Now, the motivation is to not be the last person, because the first person shows the second person how to fill the bobbin, and the second person shows the third person, and the third, the fourth, and so on. So now we have our motivation in place. Now, all I've got to do is wander the classroom. We're using the thesaurus. We're using the dictionary. I am actually doing what a teacher should be doing. I'm talking to students, and I'm talking about your work, and I'm saying, oh, that is, in a nutshell, what it is. Let me show you what the product looks like. This is what the finished product looks like. I actually have it in digital form. I do not have it. I do not have one of these books except for my son's book. Somehow I ended up with it. And his obviously was the G book. And there's a dedication. And there is the title page. And here's what it looks like. Gargantuan green. Gargantuan green gopher. Now I want you to notice something about the artwork. One of the criteria is it must extend across 2 pages. This was not stitched whenever it was made. He did not color that or draw in it with it stitched. He made it unstitched. The problem solving is huge in being able to keep this book together, and causing something to come into existence sometimes takes care and great skill. Gargantuan green gopher, garnet gorilla. Gargantuan green gopher, garnet gorilla, gross grizzly, and they are growing grass. Now, he pointed out to me in his adulthood when he was looking at this book, he said, "Oh my goodness, I didn't even realize that they were weed addicts." He says it explains, he says, yeah, he's quite an artist. And I didn't realize what a good artist he was at the time, but I started looking at this whenever I started doing this. I noticed the eyes. Watch the eyes. They move. The eyes are great in it. But he says it explains some of the behavior of what happens in the rest of this story. Gargantuan green gopher, garnet gorilla, gross grizzly, growing grass, grinding galeward. And when they grind galeward, they graze green. There's the onomatopoeia. They graze gray gargoyles, grape gunnies, and Graham Griffin's gripsack. And there's another onomatopoeia that starts with a G. And Grandma Grace's golf glider. Now, if you'll notice that in the parts of speech, it had to be a family relationship. It had to be a proper noun. It had to be some sort of activity or sport. It had to be some sort of transportation device. So they're out there looking for specific words. And they end up, and Greg Guppy's gong, guitar, glockenspiel gang, and that, so they probably were on weed. And that's what grenaded Grand Grackle's greenhouse. Now, as a teacher, I say, why would I want to grade this and go through this whole book? Well, I've already looked at all of them over and over and over. But the thing about it is, I don't know all the definitions. Choose the 10 words that I'm most likely not to know the definitions to in this book. Please give me a glossary so I can actually use the back of their own book while I'm grading them. And I only have to grade one sentence. It's at the back of the book. I grade the one sentence, and there it is. That, my friends, is the sort of assignment that validates and affirms students, because it's personal. I now have the ability to look at different level students personally, up close. I have control of the way their education is going, but more than that, I have the ability to take that book, and my son looked at that book when he was in his 20s not long ago, and he said, "This is really still good work." And I said, "Yeah, it is good work." He said, I can't believe that I did this good work. And he said to me, he said, part of it is the fact that it's all about, and he pretty much said what Robert Frost said. He said, you have this knack in the classroom for making something happen inside a kid. It's not about being a teacher. It's about being an awakener. It's about awakening them to be what they can be with what they have to work with. So I want to challenge you to get out there and, if nothing else, start listening to and looking at your behavior and whether you're affirming with your assignments and with your words and the way you interact with students. Because I don't know about you, I'm not planning on dying anyway soon. And I would like to know y'all are taking really good care of all those people that are going to be taking care of me in my old age. I could bump into some of your students somewhere along the way. And I would hope they're going to be really great people focused on lifelong learning. Thank you, folks. Appreciate it.